bringing this film together and making it happen was a little bit of a long process. I happened to meet Monika by coincidence when I needed to get permission to use a photograph of Amen Get for another documentary, about Oskar Schindler. And I met Helen at a Shoah Foundation function in Los Angeles, just after meeting Monika. And Helen was asking me, Monika had asked me, do you know Helen? I've been trying to reach this woman for many years. I've been trying to meet her for many years, and had never managed to meet her. And I went to Helen and asked her, I told her about Monika, and Helen said, I can't do this. Looking at her photograph reminds me of Amen Get. It's very, very difficult for me. But later in that same day, Helen said to me, let's talk more. She clearly wanted to talk more about it, and there was more to be said. Long story short, they did get in touch with each other and decided to meet. A lot of people often ask me, for both of you, do Monika and Helen still speak with each other? Have they kept in touch with each other? And I think that's something that we can let each of them answer. I mean, Helen, do you want to start with that?
It would rather be difficult for me. I feel for Monika, but I also have difficulties seeing her reminding me of those difficult times of my life with Amen Get. And I have to think of myself as well, because the memories are quite painful. So in that situation, I do not keep in touch with Monika.
So the two of you have not kept in touch?
No. But I seen her this second time, and I was touched by her letter she sent me, saying that she understands it is hard for me, but it's hard for her as well. But we have to do it for the murdered people, and that really touched me. She's a sensitive person, and she wants to do something about it, not to be forgotten. So she's brave.
Do you think that people, second generation in Germany, your generation and the next generation, feel the same way you do about...
David feels the same.
David, your grandson.
Yeah, of course. Because, he's educated. He goes with me to the synagogue, and we went with him to Auschwitz. I didn't tell him what really happened there because he was just 5 years old. But I told him it's a big cemetery where Jewish people are sleeping, and sleeping for a long, long time. When he knows about the Holocaust. Not everything, but he knows a bit, and he will know more and more and more. He told me, look, he says Mama to me, He said, Mama, I don't want that great-grandfather. I said, look, David, you have 4 great-grandfathers. Choose one. He said, okay.
When we first started talking about doing this film, one of the things you said to me is that potentially some of the people some other Holocaust survivors might think twice about why we would be focusing on a perpetrator or the children or second generation of perpetrators. And what kind of response have you gotten to the film from survivors? Have you spoken to other survivors about the film? Have other survivors?
Very much so. Before I agreed that I will do this documentary, I did speak to a lot of my survivors, and they gave me a lot of courage, and they told me, who can tell it better than you, Helen? And if you can do it, we would be very happy and proud of you. they gave me a lot of encouragement. I had a reservation because I didn't think I could do it. I felt, how can I possibly have to walk the walk of my past and relate to all those atrocities and brutalities that were practiced on us? How will I be able to do it? But then I just remember my people, and I felt, I am a survivor. It's a miracle, and those people perished so tragically. And who will speak for them if not I? And I feel that it's my responsibility.
When you saw that photograph of
Yes.
Monika, what did you think?
Well, she had dark hair at the time, and it was striking. The resemblance was striking. However, whatever she said in that page, I understood right there that she was quite unaware about that he was the commandant and he was such a brutal murderer, until you told me that your grandmother told you that she saw me there, and some of it. And then I read that you're starting to search and trying to find out. But when you touched my shoulder telling me I want to speak about Monika, all this came back. I didn't tell anybody about it because there's so much to talk about the Holocaust that I didn't mention this part.
There's so much on your side of the story, and there's so much on your side of the story that we couldn't get into in the film, obviously, because the time is very, very limited, and it's a much, much bigger story. But hopefully, the fact that you did come together and you did have that experience together is something that we can all take away something and learn more and continue to learn more. And it's certainly opened a lot of dialogue, and a lot of people have written to me, and I know that you've heard from a lot of people. I know that you've heard from a lot of people that have been touched by the film for various reasons.
Yes.
So hopefully that dialogue will continue. We have time for, I think, one more question. Well, we have two hands right next to each other, and we have one here that, okay, what? Go ahead. We'll do a quick...
It's a question to you. It's a very unflinching documentary, and painful to watch. And in some ways, what is going on right now is like a continuation of the documentary. The question to you is, what did you have in mind initially? Did you have?
I'll try to answer it briefly. What did I have in mind initially? I didn't know. I didn't know initially. I'd met Monika. I'd spoken to her, and when I really called her to get the rights to use a photograph of her father in another documentary. And we're talking, and suddenly she says, I'm not my father. And just those words resonated with me. And I said, of course. I said, do people judge you based on who your father was? And she started to laugh, and she talked to me for a long time and told me about growing up as Amon Get's daughter. And I thought, this is something I've never heard before, despite all the films I'd done on the Holocaust and all the history and education. So that's really how it started.